everybody, it's Chrissy from Knitting in the Heights, coming to you from a very warm July day in Washington Heights in New York City. If you're new to my channel, thank you so much for joining me. If you are a returning viewer, thank you for coming back. So I just wanted to pop on and do my July update so that everybody kind of knows what I've been getting up to knitting wise and also a little bit of life stuff. So let's go ahead and get started with the knitting. I am clearly not wearing any knitwear because it's disgusting hot in New York City right now. Today, I think the temperature, they say the temperature was in the upper 80s. The feels like is probably a lot higher than that. And it's incredibly humid right now, so it feels very, very sticky and muggy. And I've been doing a lot of travel this last week. So I'm in summer camp sessions right now. Just briefly, last 2 weeks I was in Manhattan, and this week I'm traveling down to Brooklyn. So that is about an hour and a half commute both ways for me. So that's that has just made me not care about my hair and not care too much about, what I look like, because it's just hot. It's hot. It doesn't, you can work on whatever, and it's just not going to matter. So it's all about comfort right now. But I have gotten a lot of knitting in the last month. So let's take a look at it. So I'm going to start with a WIP that I showed last time. I have a half finished object that I showed last time, and this is my socks from my Christmas Eve cast on. The yarn is from Dandelion and Dogwood's 2022 Advent Calendar, and the colorway was called Northern Lights, and it is this beautiful color. It's not coming up great on the screen because I'm like trying to keep the sun out of my bedroom right now to cool down. But it's a sparkle yarn, and you may be able to see the sparkle in there. It's got like a silver stellina that looks very snowy, and the colors are like a really pretty lavender, a pink, a teal, all on a white base, and it's absolutely beautiful, and it does look like the Northern Lights. And I'm keeping my sock in this beautiful bag from Stitching the High Notes. This was a Christmas bag that Joanna made a couple years ago, and this is the progress. I'm at the point now where I have finished the foot. Last podcast I had just started the rib. I was like maybe a third of the way through the rib. But so yeah, I finished I think I said foot, but I just finished the leg. I am knitting 64 stitches on a 2 point, I can't remember what size needle I'm using, so let me take a look. A 1.5, yep, ChowGoo, 1.5 US 1.5, 2.5 millimeter needle. I did a 1x1 twisted rib for about, I think it was 20 rows. Originally, I was planning to make these into pattern socks, but my knitting life at that time, it basically went into hibernation after I cast on. I basically knit a cuff and then didn't get any further. And the reason was I didn't have the brain space or the ability to do a lot of knitting where I was staring at a pattern at that time. Things have changed a little bit. So we'll take a look at some other projects. Although they're all fairly simple, some of them will get complicated later. But yes, very much enjoying this, and I'm hoping to have some time to work more on my objects, because good news is the back issues I've been having that have been keeping me, back and shoulder issues that have been keeping me from knitting, the pinched nerve, it's not 100% better, but I can knit for longer periods now without an issue. And we'll talk more about that later. But yeah, it's coming along, so hopefully I'll have some finished socks before the fall. All right, so let's talk about my next work in progress. So this work in progress is a longer standing WIP. It was my birthday cast on from 2022. Every year on my birthday I like to do a cast on. It's a nice way for me to celebrate. And last year I decided to cast on the Golden Oak Shawl by Nim Teasdale. The pattern can be found on Ravelry. And what's really interesting about this pattern is the beginning of the pattern is pretty plain. If you take a look, there's a lot of stockinette. There are some garter ridges in there. There's this cool pattern where there's some slip stitches and a contrasting color. So, but what's cool about the way this part of the pattern works is it's more like a recipe, and you just keep knitting until you get to a certain number of stitches. I mean, it is all charted out, but she tells you as long as you have this number of stitches plus one, you could do this. So you can make choices of where you put things. So every shawl could be different. It's kind of a choose your own adventure. But once you get to a certain number of stitches, then she provides you this incredible lace pattern that's based on oak leaves. So I'm really looking forward to that. I've actually been able to do quite a bit. From the last podcast, I worked from here all the way up to here, and there are a ton of stitches on the needles. I know there's over 200 because in order to do this slip stitch, I was at about 200 and some change. So this part here, I know there were about 200 because I had to count to see if I was at the stage where I could add the color. It's a very enjoyable knit, especially when I'm watching something on my computer. I do a lot of streaming of like Netflix series or other things. Right now, I have been very much enjoying watching two series. The first one that I've been really interested in, it's called Bolivar. It's based on the life of Simón Bolivar. It's in Spanish, but I use English subtitles, and I'm trying to learn Spanish right now because actually I am dating someone from Venezuela, and he recommended I watch this to help me with my Spanish, but also so I can learn more about his country. So I've been enjoying that. If you have Netflix and you're able to stream that, it's very enjoyable. Kind of historical. It's historical. It's rather dramatic. It's actually very well shot, beautifully shot. It was made in Colombia, but about Simón Bolivar and basically the liberation of several South American countries. So very, very interesting. Yeah, so I've been using this. This has been great knitting for that because most of it is plain enough that you can do that and watch something. The yarns that I used for this project, I have two. They're both single ply yarns. This one I already had in stash, and you can see, it's getting smaller now. But it is a skein of yarn from Sweet Sparrow Yarns, and it is in the color Turian, and that is based on the Celtic god of storms. And you can see it's very stormy. It's like, it's a gray, but also navy, and there's like white in it. It's really interesting. It looks like storm clouds. And this is in her Sandpiper base. And it was part of the Celtic Myths and Folklore series that she put out over a year ago. Because I had this in stash. It came as part of that series. And when I was going out for my birthday in 2022, I took myself out for some Chinese food on the Upper West Side. And then I took myself to Nitty City. And I wanted to find a contrasting skein of yarn to make a 2-color shawl to go along with this. And the skein of yarn I chose was this one. This is from one of my favorite New York dyers. It's Murky Depths in the Harbor base, and the color is Blood and Dried Roses. And I think it's going to be absolutely beautiful. I talked last time about how I plan to pair this with a t-shirt or some jeans. It's one of those that is very neutral. And I think would go really well in my wardrobe. But could also be used for, over a blue dress or a red dress or a white dress or a gray dress. So yeah, it's a really cool one. So I really like it. The knitting jewelry I have on this project. This is a natural stone that actually came with this as part of the club. So when you do a club with Sweet Sparrow, with Julie, she actually uses semi-precious stones oftentimes to make her progress keepers that go with the clubs, and they're absolutely beautiful. I want to say it might be labradorite. I could totally be wrong. If I figure out it's something else, I will post it below. And then the other knitting jewelry I have on this, I only have 2 stitch markers, but they're natural pearls, and they came from an Etsy shop, and I want to say it's called Pearl something. Purl something. But they're made out of natural pearls, and they're very pretty. So I have this one here. and the Pearl Smith. That's what it's called. I tell you, long days at camp have been sucking up all my brain cells. But yeah, they're really, really pretty. And it's just a joy to knit on. The yarn is beautiful. The pattern is pleasing. I think it matches well with the yarn. And I think I'm going to really love the finished object. So there you go. Yeah, I can't wait to get into the lace knitting. Although I have a feeling I'm going to have to put some lifelines in, because if my brain's not there, it's going to be a hard time. Also, this is one of the many projects that were longstanding WIPs that I'm trying to get out of my WIP collection. That was a 2023 kind of knitting goal, is to knit through the majority of my WIPs, so that I can, I can still have some WIPs on the go. Right now I was counting them. I think I have 8 left, which is great, because I think I started the year with a higher number, like 13 or something like that. And I got some big projects off the needles. And also this year, I am trying to kind of go through my stash and knit as much of my stash as possible. And I'm calculating that as well. Unfortunately, I don't have any finished objects to be able to count towards July. But the month isn't over yet, so you never know. Maybe I'll get something done in the next few days, or de-stash something. I actually have a plan for that, and I will talk about that in a minute. So this project is living in this great bag that I got on Etsy. It's just the moon phases and kind of a mustard color. It's a great bag to like throw in your backpack. I use backpacks a lot because it's New York City and I'm on the subway a lot. This is a good one because it's squishy. It's not too big. It doesn't feel too onerous to take it along with. And so I've been enjoying using this to house this project. All right. So our next project I'm going to talk about is, it's also a WIP. It's also using up stash. It's specifically leftovers. And, I think a little bit more, well, I mean, I don't want to say it's a more creative way, but it's a more creative way than I've used before. So in the past, I've done like scrappy blankets. I still have scrappy blankets on the needles and hooks, mostly on the hooks right now. I don't have any knit blankets on the go, although I plan to change that soon. But one of the things that I never thought of, blankets are so big, right? They're really big and they can become really bulky, and it feels like it takes forever to finish. Like my last blanket, I started in 2016 and I just finished it. So it took almost 7 years, not quite 7 years. So I think that it's, I want to do things that are scrappy that use up my yarn. I've done shawls before, and those have been beautiful projects. I have plans to do sweaters, like using mini skeins from advent calendars. But I was thinking, I have lots of little odds and ends, and I didn't want to crochet something. I wanted to knit something. And I thought that making a pillow cover for a pillow would be a great idea, and it doesn't kind of matter what order you do them in, because I'm going to do something bright and fun and cheerful. And so I am knitting this great pattern. It's not meant to be a pillow cover. It's meant to be a blanket, but I'm basically going to knit 2 of these and then sew them together. Yeah, so that's the plan. And it's been great subway knitting because it's actually super portable. So let me show you this. It is called, the pattern that I'm using is called the Giant Square Scrap Blanket. But again, I'm knitting it to be a cushion cover. So let me see if I can spread it out. It's a perfect square. Kind of start with like this pinhole type start at the beginning. I think they give you a couple ways. You can start crochet, or you can start with this kind of pinhole knit stitch. I think there are different ways to start this. I don't want to lose any of my stitches, though. It's kind of hard to show. But I just moved it to a 40-inch cord because I had it on a 24-inch cord and it felt a little bit tight. But as you can see, I'm using so many different leftovers from other projects or leftover mini skeins. Some of which I've used in sweater projects. I did the sea glass tee as a sweater before, like in 2022, using those advent calendars I got that year. I've done the traditional, what is it called? The Cozy Memories type blanket. I've been working on a corner to corner granny square, like a granny blanket. I've been working on a Battenberg. So, when you work on those, I mean, not the corner to corner because you can use all of it, but when you work on the others, you do end up with leftovers. Also, like when I do socks, and I use heels and toes, I might have leftovers, but not enough for too much else. But as you can see, it uses pretty much everything. I have been leaving tails to weave in, and there's a way to kind of join as you go where you do secure it so it feels a little bit more stable. But it's coming out really like in a really beautiful kind of pattern. There's sparkle, there's variegated, there's solids, there's tonals, and it's just a fun way to use up your yarn, And yeah, so I'm enjoying this. I am a fan of color, so this doesn't scare me. So this will be one side of the cushion, and we'll have another on the other side. And I've been trying to figure out how I want to be able to open and close it, because I want to be able to, hand wash it if something gets on it. So if you have some ideas, go ahead and comment below. I have been really debating putting a zipper in and hand sewing a zipper in. I think that could work actually really nicely. I was also thinking, maybe I could do something with buttons and create a flap on one side. That's also a possibility. So I haven't decided that yet. I have to knit this first, and I have to knit another side, and then I can decide. So that's kind of where I'm at now. So I might create like an envelope type thing with buttons, or I might just create, just sew in a zipper. So we'll see. But I'm hoping it's going to be a pretty good size blanket. It definitely needs more to be able to get to where I want it to get. This is living in my Sew Ready Me bag that is in Snoopy fabric that is very wintry, which is kind of how I wish it was right now instead of disgusting weather. But c'est la vie, it's fine. Tomorrow it's actually going to be like 95 degrees and then 96 degrees, and the humidity's been between the 60s and the 80s, and it just feels like you're in a jungle, a concrete jungle. Okay, my last work in progress. So this is exciting. So this year I did do a birthday cast on. It was not what I thought it was going to be, but I had most of the yarn already caked up, and it just made sense. So in 2021, Stephen West's is it the Slipstravaganza? No. I can't remember. Whatever the Stephen West Mystery Knit Along was, I started it. And then I decided I was not going to end up finishing it. But I had a lot of yarn left. I kind of created this like half doily thing that goes on from the beginning of the shawl, because I did like the beginning and what it looked like. I didn't want to frog all that yarn. But I had a bunch of skeins already wound up that were in similar enough colors that I thought, you know what, this looks like it could be a sew faded sweater. So what I did was I pulled them out of stash. They're already wound up, and we know we don't like to leave wound yarn for too long. I kind of decided I was going to do this a while ago. So I pulled those 3 yarns out, and I put them in a project bag I made myself many, many moons ago. And it's a great sweater bag. It's just like a great size to hold multi-skein projects. And so I cast on, and I knew I have made this Sew Faded before. This is by Andrea Mowry. I have made it before, but I decided to make one more size up, because the one I have, it's a good size for me. It's very it's like 0, maybe a little bit of negative ease, but it fits fine. But I wanted something a little bit more oversized and baggy. So as I cast it on, I was kind of looking at my colors and playing around with it, and I realized like there was too much of a jump from the first color to the second color. I thought it was going to be the second color. And I was thinking, I have more yarns in my stash that are in these color combos that maybe I should just pull out. And so I had a few ideas. And so I was trying to find a specific skein of yarn, which I couldn't find at the moment. I know it's actually in another storage area that's in Gabriel's closet. Gabriel's my son, if that's your first time here. But I have this kind of linen cupboard, which is pretty rare in New York City. But the top row is all yarn and yarn-related stuff. And then I realized there is this skein of yarn that is kind of that transitionary color that I was going to use for socks. And I'm like, not for socks, my friend. This is going in your sweater. It's too pretty not to. So let's take a look at the yarn first. So again, this is going to be a Sew Faded by Andrea Mowry. And our first skein, and this is where I'm at, and I need to do the collar, with this, and I'm thinking about adjusting the pattern so that it's, I might do something where it's like, I'm trying to remember what it's called, but one of those collars that kind of folds over itself, so it's a little bit more substantial. I was thinking about that because on my current So Faded, the one I have already knit, I did wear that a lot. I have worn it a lot, and because I feel like it stretches out a little bit too much. May have been how I knit it, because that was when I knit backwards, meaning I threw the yarn the wrong way, so all my stitches are twisted. So that could be part of it. But anyhow, I'm thinking I might do a little bit more substantial, a collar. So I wanted to save plenty of yarn for that. And then whatever's left is going to start a new blanket project for me. So that's something that's exciting. But I'm not going to start that until later. It's also going to use up a lot of leftovers. So this is the first color. Sorry. I will eventually get there. It's been a long day. So this is also from Sweet Sparrow Knits, or Sweet Sparrow Yarn Julie. This is in the May Fairy colorway, and it was part of her Fairies Club sometime last year. It came with this beautiful fairy bag. I think it was last year. It might have been the year before, but really, really, really beautiful yarn. It's kind of a cream color, and it has like this really beautiful blush that kind of goes over it, but it's mostly like a light cream. And then it has like these speckles of purples and rose and a little bit of green, a little bit of bluish colors. But it's super subtle. These are super subtle sparkles. Speckles? It's not sparkle yarn. But they're super subtle speckles. Really beautiful. So my transition yarn that I added is this really, really pretty yarn. And it's currently attached to my project. But there you go. It's that yarn cake. It definitely has some yarn barf. Sorry about that. This is from the Textile Witch. And if I can, let me see if I can find the tag to remember what the colorway is called. It's called Peas Blossom, based on those flowers that come out in the summer. And so you can see it's like it has that same kind of creamy white color underbase, but then it's like a little bit more vibrant pops of the exact same, or most of the same colors that are in the May Fairy. So if you take a look at them together, it's like this is a subtler version of this. So you get more, like the speckles are longer, they're more vibrant in this one. The next color I will be using, and this is the only one that's not kind of the same base. They're all kind of like, I want to say they're like 75-25. Yeah, they're 75-25. This one actually has cashmere. This is Chelsea Luxe, and it's in the pink peony colorway. It's mostly kind of a pink with the same kind of whitish cream, and then the dark purple that we saw before. But it's like going more towards pink. It's leaning more pink in general with some purple pops, a little bit of lavender in there. So it doesn't have other color speckles at this point. Okay, so we're kind of, the way this is going to fade, it's kind of fading towards pinks and purples. Okay, so that's really pretty. And then our final colorway, this is from Craft House Magic. And this is called Believe, and it's purple. Again, some yarn barf. What's cool is it goes to an even darker purple color in there, but it's like a really dark lavender color. So let's take a look. Ooh, it's hard to manage all these skeins at once. But you can see this is our fade. So I'm digging it. It's very much, I don't have any sweaters that I've made in these colors, so that's kind of nice, that I'm kind of going to a different colorway, but I know these colors look good on me, and very enjoyable. So let's take a look, because I've actually made a lot of progress. This has been like obsession knitting. So when I first knit the So Faded, I left out the garter on the sleeves. This time I'm knitting it to pattern, and I'm making the size, I want to say 52-inch bust. That sounds right. See. Nope, I lied. Size 46-inch bust. Yeah, 52-inch bust would be too big, I think. So again, we have Mayfairy here, and I don't want to give away the pattern, but you start with Mayfairy, then you fade in, and I won't go in how you do it because you got to pay for the pattern. You fade in the next color, and it's like so cool because it really does like fade pretty seamlessly, because I mean it just gets darker. It's not like a super like you can tell where it's faded in, but like where it fades, it's hard to tell. But it's, yeah, I'm loving it, and I think it's going to be a very cozy, very nice sweater. I'm sure I can wear this to work. I can wear it with jeans. I can wear it with like dress pants. And I think it's going to be very versatile in my wardrobe. And I think people, I know it's one of those knits that's, is just going to bring joy. I'm back. I just had a grocery delivery ring the doorbell, so I had to go take care of that because there is frozen food and it needed to get in the freezer. So, as I was saying, I've been really pleased with this knit. You need to make sure I don't lose any stitches. I think I'm good. So let me make sure this is all on there. But I've gotten to the point where this is a raglan. Make sure I don't hurt my yarn. This is a raglan style sweater. There are these garter sleeves. That it's like it stops being garter, basically. And then I kind of love this detail of how you get a really clean line right here on the raglan decreases on both sides. That's really pretty. And it really shows up well in this yarn. So I've been enjoying that. And then, yeah, I split for the sleeves. So now it's just round and round and round she goes. I did take some time to math. Because I want to use as much of this yarn as possible. But I also have to make sure I save enough yarn for the sleeves so that they match, right? But I don't want to be left over with tons. So again, in the first yarn, it was saving enough to do the kind of collar I want. So there may be a little bit more yarn left over here. But what I did was when I split for the sleeves, I weighed the skein of yarn. And then I figured out, based on the number of stitches, out of the total, like what percentage of yarn I need to do the body versus the sleeves if I were to use all of this. And then added on an allowance for the actual fading part of what I think. So what I figured out, I should be able to knit until about 44 grams are left. So once I get, and I have my trusty kitchen scale I use for this. So right now, let's see where we're at. Let me put that down someplace stable. So right now I have left 80 grams. This was a pretty hefty skein. I think there were over 100 grams in this. So once I get to about 44 grams, I'm going to stop. And then I'll start the sequence to do the fade, which again, I'm not going to describe. And again, I'm going to use the Chelsea Luxe, the pink peony color, to fade that in. And then I'll have about 44 grams. Then I'll do the same thing. Like once I get to the point where I have stopped with the fade section, I'm going to weigh the pink peony, see how much is there, do the similar math, see how much I can knit in that color. Then I'm going to go to the bleaf section. I will likely knit this I plan on knitting this 2 pattern. So what's really interesting is I am the one size up from, if I remember right in the pattern, there's like a section where, it takes like the first 5 sizes, right? And then it'll go to the next 4 or 5 sizes. And certain things change in the pattern on how you do the raglans increases. I think I said decreases before, but there are definitely increases. And I decided, and it's like pretty dramatic between the size below and the size I am on how you create those increases. Like it has to do with like the depth of how long you knit. And I didn't want it to be like so long that the depth went too far down, if that makes sense. And that's what was going to happen. It was like a very drastic difference between the size before, like how many repeats you knit, and the next one. So I did this kind of weird hybrid thing, but the math works out. Like I ended up with the right number of stitches where sometimes the increases, how can I say this? Sometimes it was a single increase versus a double increase. I can say that. I think I can say that. So, yeah, so I think we're good. Yeah. So there you go. Wow, I've had a lot of little things pop up that I've had to deal with because just life. Because life has been lifing. Anyway, so yeah, I've been really enjoying this. I think I'm going to be very, very happy with the end result. And yeah, I've made incredible progress, I think, considering I just started it in July and I've gotten work done on lots of others. So just some final thoughts about some of my knitting. So I was going to talk about ideas about destashing in July. So I was talking to my friend Josh, who some of you may remember from Vlogmas, who actually features in the end rehearsal. He's one of the teachers. So you could get to see him play the viola as well. But he has been gravitating towards thicker yarn projects for instant gratification, and he's just enjoying it. He has significantly larger hands than myself, so knitting with bigger needles, knitting with thicker yarn is something he's really enjoying. The plan for me to knit the December shawl by Melanie Berg has been something on my to-do list for years because I have super bulky yarn that is literally just waiting for that project. I cannot bring myself to do it. So he and I were talking, and I said, you know, I don't really want to knit this thing. And he said, well, I'll knit this thing and I'll give it to you. So what we're going to do is I'm going to destash the yarn to him at some point in maybe the next few days, actually. Maybe that'd be a project for this weekend to pull that stuff out of storage, to pull all that yarn out of storage and get ready to take to him on Monday at camp. But yeah, he's going to actually knit the December shawl by Melanie Berg, and the idea is he's just going to give it to me, but, you know, he'll have the yarn so that he can knit some more stuff. And then the other thing I was going to talk briefly about is what's going on with my shoulder and arms. So, because I've been in camp, I haven't been able to see the chiropractor. However, what I am finding, because I'm moving around constantly, I'm walking more, I'm playing my viola more, meaning I'm having to use these muscles a lot more, my back is strengthening again. And so because my back is strengthening, I'm having fewer like mobility issues, and I'm just moving my body around generally more. So that's great news. It means that I probably need to actually do more stretches and move around more during the school year, not just during summer camp. Maybe even play my viola a couple times. I mean, I went to school for it. I probably should play once in a while. But anyhow, so it's allowing me to knit more often. So that's great. Yeah, I mean, there are some weird things that are popping up, and that really comes from me just not having played in forever. So for instance, I'm getting a weird callus right here. I don't know if you can see it. That is actually from playing the viola. That is new. And not quite sure why. More than likely, I have recently had to change bows. I mean, that actually feels bone related. So the next time I go to the chiropractor, I'm going to have him take a look at it because, I don't know, it feels bony, but I think it's just, I don't think it's actually a bone. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm getting bone spurs. That could be. I have a bone spur on my spine, and they run in my family. Could be, but I don't know. I'm not sure. But you can tell I have a crooked finger. Awesome. Anyway, and yes, it's my index finger. But yeah, so that's why I'm able to knit more, is because I'm moving more and I'm in less pain. I will say, time-wise, I don't necessarily have much more knitting time, except this week I travel to Brooklyn. So this has been a really good month. I mean, there have been challenges here or there. It's been very busy at work. And when I say busy, I mean like really busy. So we are in the midst of summer camp season at my program. And starting on July 10th, I think. Yeah, I think that was the day, if that was Monday. It's all running together now. We started a summer camp in Lower Manhattan for any students that wanted to come that are in our programs for 2 weeks, and it was free to all of our children. It was a full day. Kids could get there as early as 8:30 in the morning and leave as late as 5 p.m. if they wanted to. We had to make sure they had lunch, and it was all music all day. And what's really cool is Colleen got to go to that camp, and she made some great friends in New York City. Part of my responsibilities, in addition to being the administrator at the camp and still doing my job for the school year, and this was a more interesting part of my job. Since I'm coming from Upper Manhattan, we had a number of students coming from Upper Manhattan as well, from Washington Heights and Harlem. And I offered to their families that I would help them get to Lower Manhattan because that's a bit of a trek. And for some families, it would be prohibitive for their kid to participate if they had to take them themselves every single day. So it was Monday through Friday. And so I would meet kids at one of our sites up in the Heights, and then we would get on one of the trains and take it an hour away to Lower Manhattan. We didn't take an express train. We took a local train. Usually with the local trains, there tend to be more seats. I think the largest number of kids I transported in a day were 7 by myself. Colleen was with me. There were a couple of older kids also, meaning like preteen and early teen. So they helped me with the little tiny ones. I had 2 little ones that were like 4th graders. They were really cute. And what was cool about that is kids kids who never would know each other because they go to different schools in our program, they got to be really good friends. And that was really, really cool to see. And they would spend time together on the train, and then, they had other friends at the camp, and it was just really cool to see all the kids work together. So we had, at that camp, we had about, I'd say it was like 65 or 70 kids that participated in that camp. We had violinists and violists and cellists and clarinet players, and we had this whole crew of kids that like either played recorder or percussion or sang. And so all those kids, we call them our general music kids, and they all learned recorder. All of those kids worked on recorder. They had a recorder class. They learned to play the recorder if they didn't know how to play. They also played bucket drums with our ensembles. Every kid in our camp sang, and that was really cool. They learned 2 songs in Swahili. And all the kids, they had what's called group classes, where the kids would play together with their like instruments, of kids that were the same level, or around the same level as them. And then we also had pop music class, and I taught that. I don't typically do a lot of teaching for our program, so that's been super fun. I got to choose all the music. I got it all arranged. And in the Manhattan camp, we did 3 tunes. We did a short version of I'm the One by DJ Khaled and Justin Bieber, but I played a clean version of it for the kids when we did listen to it. We also did 2 pieces from Into the Spider-Verse. The first one we did was, what is it called? What's Up, Danger? And you will hear it, along with the second piece we did, it's called Sunflower. Those 2 pieces are going to actually feature as the underscoring for the life vlog stuff with the kids. So that's actually us playing. I am actually amped up my viola. I have this thing called a belly band that we have for my viola, where I can then plug it into an amp. It's like a pickup. It's what we call a contact mic. So the vibrations from the instrument go into this contact mic that go around the body of the instrument itself. And that's transmitted to an amplifier, so that nothing has to stay on my instrument. It actually velcros around like a belt, but all of that actually vibrates, and then I can amp up, and it's super cool. But yeah, it was great. That was actually really fun. It was a lot of work for those 2 weeks, and I'm in the next 2-week camp. We're now in Brooklyn. We're playing some of the same music, and in the last video clip from the life vlog, it's actually a rehearsal from, I think, day 2, because today's day 3 of the Brooklyn camp. So it was from yesterday, and we were working on some of the same music that we did in Manhattan. We're playing a couple other pieces as well. So I think I want to say you're going to hear I'm the One, but we're also working on, it's a Rihanna tune. What is it called? I could hear it in my head, and I don't want to sing. On the I really don't want to sing. But I'm trying to remember the actual name of the piece. Hold on. I'm going to pause. Okay, it just came to me as soon as I stopped. We Found Love. Again, I have a clean version of it so the kids can listen. And this camp is going pretty well. It's a lot less kids. About 22 kids have shown up so far. We were anticipating more. We had about 30 kids signed up. This camp, because it's so spread out where our sites are in Brooklyn, we have a small bus that takes some of the kids from the further sites to bring them to our home base. That's kind of in the middle of Brooklyn. And it's in a public school. We are constricted a little bit more by the school in this case. And the other one, we rent the space. We get like half of a floor. We can run it all ourselves. They were really great at communicating. This one's one of our normal school partners, and because of that, and they also have like 700 kids in the building this summer from all the different programs they're running, plus the Department of Education, the New York City Department of Education has a summer program. And they have kids, a lot more, like a bunch of kids with special needs have their summer program there as well. It's like full. It is absolutely full. So there are over 700 kids in this building with multiple camps going on. So we're a little bit more limited on space and what we can use. And communication hasn't been as easy because it is so crowded and busy. And they're donating the space to us. So there's only so much complaining I'm willing to do. But one of the challenges has been at least one of the rooms for sure. This is the main room we were using. The air conditioner doesn't work. And that's no bueno. That is not good in New York City in the summer for anyone, let alone kids. And so we've had to do a lot of like moving around, trying to get to the coolest place. But yeah, we're really limited by space because of the number of kids in the building. So yeah, so you're going to get to see part of the rehearsal. There are kids in the video, but I'm only getting the backs of their heads because I do not have permission to show their faces. So that's why it's that way. And I don't feel good about showing children in my program their faces. Now, I will say I have no problem showing the teachers because they're grown-ups and they know I do a podcast and it's fine. And we're wearing our program's t-shirts. So, I mean, honestly, if you like look at my Instagram, you know exactly where I work. It is a thing, I mean, it's fine. But yeah, the kids sound great. Actually, considering in this video, this was only our second rehearsal on that tune. So I'm really happy with how they're sounding. I will say it also helps the fact that we have like 2 or 3 kids at that camp. I'm trying to think how many kids it was. In that video, there are 3 kids that were at the Manhattan camp. And then you have a bunch of teachers playing. So with that, the rest of the kids have no choice but to just go along with the flow and learn it. So we have a bunch of people that already know the music or some of the music. So that's part of like why the kids actually sound so good right away. But yeah, I mean, I'm really pleased with it, and I've been having just a fun playing with these kids. Other things you're going to see in the life vlog. So since Colleen was here, we had to do some things around town. So the beginning of when she got here, which was just before my birthday, so it was late June, we went to Koreatown and we got some Korean fried chicken because she loves that. And so we did that with Gabriel. So you'll see some of that. And, we were just doing a lot of stuff. And a lot of the stuff we did was with other people's kids. So my significant other, the man I'm dating, he has a small child, and I don't feel comfortable showing him on the vlog at this stage without his dad's express permission. So until that's the case, I can't take video of him for that. But we did things with them as well. But one thing you do get to see is we went back to Morris Jumel Mansion, which is in my neighborhood. It's this pre-Revolutionary War mansion that Eliza Jumel lived in. Eliza Jumel was married to Aaron Burr. And if you've seen Hamilton, you might know who Aaron Burr is. He's the guy that was in a duel with Hamilton. So She was married to him. He was her second husband. But there's all these thoughts about whether or not the place is haunted. There are stories of it being haunted, which is kind of cool. And Colleen is very interested in that type of stuff, so she always wants to go there. And it's walking distance from where we live, so very easy. It's only about 7 blocks away, something like that. But it's cool because it's like very historical. George Washington directed the Battle of Harlem during the Revolutionary War. That was his headquarters at that time. And it's this really cool snapshot in history in the middle of Manhattan, and most people don't even know it exists. So we walked around there, and the apple trees have apples on them, which is kind of cool. And it's just this little historical oasis in New York City. So that was nice. And then the other video is going to be, our rehearsal. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great month, everyone. Bye. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, go!
subscribe and hit the bell. And goodbye.